The Tigers look awful in what was definitely the biggest televised event in the country last night. We talk about that, and we also talk about where the team is at the halfway point in the season. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, June 28th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Tigers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. So check out Booking.com for your first stay today. Happy Friday to everyone. Welcome in, welcome all. The Detroit Tigers lose 5-0 to the Angels out in LA on Thursday night in a game that I can't imagine had very good ratings given everything else that was on TV with the debate and whatnot on Thursday night. And what an absolutely dreadful performance by the Detroit Tigers. I mean, my goodness. They lose 5-0. They're 37-44 on the season. That is as close as you will get me to having nothing and no one represent the what went right segment of the show. This is and it was only a 5-0 loss, right? Like, it's not like they lost by 12. They didn't lose, 17-0. But that was a dreadful and lethargic and pathetic performance. That was awful. Game was over in like an hour and 50 minutes. Have fun in LA, everyone. Have fun. Enjoy your weekend in Cali, I guess. That was awful. Vomit-inducing. We could just spend half an hour and I could just think of adjectives to describe that baseball game. Disturbing. It was truly awful. So let's get right into it. 3 minutes in, let's get right into it. What went wrong in this ball game? And we're gonna eliminate the answer of just everything, okay? Because then I wouldn't have a show, right? I need a job. So Jack Flaherty, we'll start with him. Unfortunately, has a start where he comes back down to earth a little bit. 5 2/3, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Gives up 3 home runs in this ball game. His ERA is now 3.24 on the season. The stuff looked the same as it always does. Okay, so I did not have an issue with how the stuff looked. This was really a command thing. He was leaving fastballs over the heart of the plate a lot, and the Angels were not missing them. They are, 93 to 95 mile an hour heaters down the middle. A lot of major league teams are going to make contact with those. Not the Tigers, mind you. If he was pitching against his own team, he would have gone, 7 or 8 shutout tonight. But unfortunately for him, he's on the Tigers, so he can't face the Tigers and boost his stats. He plays the Angels, who have a worse record than the Tigers, and they hit him around the yard in this one. It really was just, in all seriousness, fastball command was a big issue for him. Even like the slider that was hit out, like that, I mean, way out in front of it. The hitter was way out in front of it, and it was located decently well, at least one of them. Again, 3 home runs, not a great day at the office. I'm not too terribly worried about it, right? But we'll see. Obviously, Flaherty has kind of a roller coaster of a track record. He has really good seasons. He has really bad seasons. So we'll see where this takes us. this was not a very great performance. Still got 7 strikeouts, still got his swings and misses as he does. Again, the stuff was good. I'm just talking in circles. Let's move on. The offense. Shutout. Not great. A fascinating stat that was put out into the Twitter sphere, the X sphere, whatever the heck it's called now, by Chris Brown over at Motor City Metrics is that the Detroit Tigers have scored 1 or 0 runs in 23 games this year. 23. There's 23. They have scored 1 or less. They've played 81. So that's not good. That is, I believe, the second highest in baseball, only behind the White Sox, who are one of the worst teams anybody has ever seen, and you're within 2 of them. So that's certainly a testament to this offense. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. Look at the lineup. And I feel like I say this every other game. Maybe even more frequently. Maybe I say this literally every game. Look at the lineup this team is trotting out there. Matt Vierling, Colt Keith, who has now a 608 OPS after the 0 for 4 in this game. Riley Greene, 2 for 3, OPS over 850. Your only professional hitter right now on a consistent basis. Gio Urshela was hitting cleanup for you. Gio Urshela is an 0 for 3 or 0 for 4 performance away from having an OPS in the 500s. It's at 603. And his batting average is 249. He's hitting under 250 now, and they're all singles, and he doesn't draw walks. That's your cleanup hitter, because at least you know he's going to put the bat on the ball, which is more than like 70% of this lineup can say on a nightly basis. Akil Baddoo, 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, a 114 average. Oh my, listen to the bottom. This is your what, 6 through 9 hitters? These are the batting averages of your 6 through 9 hitters in the lineup in this game. 114, 140, 190, 237. What are we doing? The OPS game for those hitters, 563, 523, 556, 681. It is very late. It is now early. That's how late it is as I record this. And what are we doing? Right? Why did why am I watching a team where half of the lineup has sub 600 OPSs and we're almost in July? Okay, let's move on. Got a little bit more to talk about on the offensive side of things. We're going to talk about what went right very quickly because it's not a very long list. Then we'll get into stuff and we'll discuss where this team is at the halfway mark in the season. We will do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Booking.com. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival's city. Look, even a New York fan going to Boston can find great deals and set themselves up for a great time in the city of Boston using Booking.com. Tigers fans can do the same thing in Cleveland, Minnesota, Kansas City, Chicago, you name it. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this Major League Baseball season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. So book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Also got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is, as we always say, the best in the business. And I love sports, but this time of year, the sports might not be sportsing, as the kids say, as much as we want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to fanduel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. You are all the real troopers and the real MVPs here. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day, bring you the biggest stories in sports from all of our great hosts here at Locked On, streaming 24/7, again, on YouTube. You can subscribe, Locked On Sports Today, or check it out for free in the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Talking about what went wrong in this 5-0 loss to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I don't know if you still say that or not, but I always just kind of do because I thought it was cool and kind of funny when I was growing up. The offense was dreadful. That's not a surprise to anyone at this point. I know I'm getting really worked up over it, but it's not a shock to anyone. So if you're just like, okay, move on, we get it, the offense sucks, I apologize. This was a truly remarkable one because Davis Daniel threw 8 shutout innings against the Detroit Tigers. If you're not aware who Davis Daniel is, most Angels fans aren't really aware of who Davis Daniel is. Not all of them. There are some. There are some very, very intelligent ones who have been beating the drum for Davis Daniel. But as a whole, this is not a household name. This is not a top prospect. This is a 27-year-old making his first major league start and who had a ERA over 5 in AAA this season. He threw 8 shutout innings against the Detroit Tigers. And the thing that infuriated me the most about this performance from the offense specifically was the fact that the at-bats actually got less competitive as the game went along, right? Early on, he was dotting pitches. He was getting some swings and misses. His changeup was actually wonderful. I was very, very impressed by it. He's not a high-velocity guy, but he doesn't need to be with how he was kind of sequencing and working his pitches. It's still infuriating because the Tigers' offense is never good. So the fact that they continue to not be good didn't make me happy, but it was at least, okay, this guy is kind of hitting spots and dealing right now. Once he hit about the, 4th or 5th inning, so we got the lineup flipped over, we got through the lineup for the second and then the third time, that's when I really got hot. And that's when I was really the most upset because the at-bats were alarmingly uncompetitive. They weren't going deep into counts. There weren't any like long at-bats that even resulted in strikeouts or anything. It was just rollover after rollover after rollover after rollover. And they were doing it earlier in counts, not first pitch, because they refused to do that under any circumstance. Even if the ball's on a freaking tee down the middle, doesn't matter. So we'll move on from that complaint. But it was remarkable to watch. Right? Balls over the heart of the plate, changeups low, but still in the strike zone. Doesn't matter. Balls that a good offense would groove or have even if it's not, I'm not saying this dude would have got like smacked around. Again, all the credit in the world to him. He was great, but like, I'm not trying to take away anything from a dude who shoved in his first major league start whatsoever. But this was a situation where if he plays a good lineup, maybe the first time or two through the lineup, for the first 1.5 times through a legitimate lineup, he still would have looked good. And then there would have been at least a lot more pressure on the base paths at a minimum as the game went along. And the Tigers just completely rolled over and died. And it was remarkable to watch unfold. The most uncompetitive ABs you'll see. I don't know. I literally don't know what else to say. So we're going to stop. Again, just a really kind of disgusting and gross ball game. There was a point in the 5th inning. They had 2 outs, nobody on, and then gave up a single. And then wild pitch, passed ball. Next thing you know, there's a man on third, then a walk. You had 2 outs, nobody on, and we're just kicking the ball all over the field, and now it's first and third, 2 out. It was a very unserious baseball game, so we can move on. Bo Brisky's usage still kind of bothered me, and I tweeted something similar to this out, but like I want to see him in higher leverage. The issue is, like, he was just in a innings eater kind of low leverage role again, and the issue is this team doesn't play in high leverage in the middle of ball games. Like they just don't. And if they do, it's a 1-1 or 2-1 ball game. And they're going to go to, the Foleys of the world, and they're going to go to Shelby Miller and whatnot. So like it's I don't know, like I'm upset kind of that he was used in low leverage inning eating opportunities again. But at the same time, I don't know. The team has to actually be in that situation, a higher leverage situation, for him to get utilized as such. So I don't know. Maybe I don't even know what I'm complaining about at this point. What went right? Very close to saying nothing. Alarmingly close. Have to give Riley Greene some credit, so we will. He went 2 for 3 in this ball game. Again, had a double. Seems to be the only, on a night-to-night basis, competitive hitter in this entire lineup. And then after that, the bullpen, I guess, didn't give up any runs. But like I didn't think, even though I'm kind of upset that he was used, I didn't think Brisky was super sharp. He had a good strikeout against Miguel Sano there, who hit an absolute monster laser of a home run early in this ball game. But I didn't think he looked particularly sharp, but he didn't give up any runs. So credit where credit is due there. And then Joey Wentz, had 2 strikeouts. Didn't think he looked really sharp, but threw up zeros. So I guess credit to him. The bullpen didn't have any runs to their name given up. So I guess I will include them, but I didn't think either of them looked amazing. This is like super Debbie Downer. I apologize, but it's about 1 a.m. and I stayed up to watch this team just lay an absolute egg and play just a disgusting brand of baseball. As far as stuff goes, Kiter Montero to AAA before this ball game. Alex Fido reinstated from the IL. We've been talking about that all week. So that is what ended up happening. Then just like the sheer fact that the Tigers are always awful against the Angels. That was kind of the talk of Tigers Twitter and the Tigers community during this game. Chris Castellani talked about it quite a bit after the ball game as well. It is remarkable because the Angels don't have like some, this isn't the Dodgers. This isn't like, I don't even want to make that comp. I'm not trying to offend Angels fans that may be listening. This hasn't been a team that's been like a juggernaut for the last 15 years is my point. This isn't a team that has just put together playoff team after playoff team after playoff team over the last decade or two. Right? They had a really good 2000s, got a ring. We're in the playoffs in the late 2000s as well. The 2010s, despite having Trout and Ohtani, haven't been the same. So like it's remarkable that the Tigers continue to just absolutely suck against the Angels no matter what. They really suck against the entire West Coast. We've talked about outside of the postseason success, regular season wise, this team has been dreadful against the A's for quite some time. Right? The A's have put together some awful baseball teams, especially recently. Okay. Let's talk about where this team is at the halfway point in the season. We will do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the definition of clutch. I talk about them all the time because they deserve it. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app can actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They have so many great features. You have zone deals, which are super fun. You pick the section and Game Time picks the row and the seat, and you can save money that way. They have flash deals, which are exclusive in-app deals. You can select seats ahead of time of the game or event and get a discount on those. Again, you can save up to 60% off by buying last minute on Game Time, something I love to do, especially living close to the sports venues here in the city of Detroit. It is great. And then on top of all of that, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. So we're going to take segment 3 here. I'm done talking about this ball game. Really even fascinated and blown away that we got 2 segments out of it. That was an atrocity. Let's talk about where this team is at. We are officially at the 81 game mark. 37-44, 81 games into this season, the halfway point in the year. A stat that is very, very sad that was put out there by Evan Woodbury, who is the Tigers beat writer for M Live, is that this is actually the most successful Tigers first half in 8 years. I want you to really open the door and let that porcelain sink in. I really want that to resonate with people. 37-44 is the Tigers' best record since 2016. I know to some people it may not seem like 2016 was a very long time ago. That is almost a decade. We are 8 years removed from that. That is remarkably sad. That 7 games under 500 is the best we've seen in recent memory. That's most of my adult life. So where is this team at the halfway point this season? What are the thoughts and opinions of this? I think it's really telling that I think personally, and to each their own, I would love to hear your opinion. Please comment on YouTube, whatever, Twitter sphere, you name it, put it out there. I'm very curious in what the fan base's opinion is of where this team is at the halfway point in the season, because I think that this has been an objective failure of a season from where I sit. And look, I am not, my last name is Bentley, not Harris, right? So I did not know the internal expectations, right? I only have what my expectations were personally going into the season. And this has been a pretty large failure, I would say. And there's still a lot of baseball left to be played, et cetera, et cetera. This offense has been brutal pretty much all year. Even when they were winning games in April, the offense was putrid, and they just had an unsustainable, ridiculous month from their bullpen, and were getting really good starts from everybody outside of Kenta Maeda. They have now moved on to that, and the pitching has shown that there are some cracks, right, in the rotation, and the bullpen has completely imploded. And the offense has not changed. It has continued to be terrible. This is, by a lot of metrics, one of the bottom 3 to 5 offenses in this sport. Not in the American League, in baseball. There was a lot of people that were talking about the success, right, by this Angels pitch by Davis Daniel, who made his major league debut. And the caveat on all of them was, well, the Tigers have the 5th worst WOBA in baseball. Oh, the Tigers have, the 3rd worst OBP. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all of them were attached with but it is the Tigers, remember? And that's 8 years in to a rebuild. Now, Scott Harris has not been here 8 years, right? The previous regime was the previous regime. I couldn't stand the previous regime, and it's moved on. But we're also 2 years in to this thing and to this regime, to the Scott Harris era. And we talked about the lineup earlier, right? I already went through and listed the lineup for this June 28th game. Now, this is not all on his shoulders. And the reason I say that is because some of this has to fall on the players. There are players who have significantly underperformed their expectations. Spencer Torkelson is the biggest and most glaring person on that list, but Parker Meadows is absolutely in there. Colt Keith, absolutely in there. You can go down the list of most of these players. Sans, Riley Greene, and Matt Vierling. Maybe Carson Kelly. You can remove him too. Nearly everybody else that's healthy on the offensive side of the ball has significantly underperformed their expectations. But when you look at what this team did last year and what they needed from last year to this year, right? I talked a lot last season about, we can even start at the beginning. Every single opening day on this show, I give a theme to the year on what I think the theme of the season is going to be. The theme last year in 2023 was the year of the audition, is what I kept calling it. And it was, you know what? Win-loss record isn't going to be on the forefront of my brain. This is the first year of a new regime. This dude wants to see what he has in the cupboard. We're going to play a lot of the kids. We're going to play a lot of the players with a lot of team control left. And we're going to see which of these guys are going to cement themselves as long-term pieces of the team and long-term pieces of the puzzle, and which ones aren't. Why are we doing that again? How many years do we need to do this? How many seasons do we need to see what we have? One of the comments that I think was the wildest that Scott Harris has made so far this season was a few weeks ago. Maybe it was even longer. I think it was when he was on MLB Network. So that would have been 2-3 weeks ago. And one of the quotes was, we need to establish the core. This is somewhat of a paraphrase. We need to establish the core before the team spends money. And I'm baffled by that, because define that. Please enlighten me. Define what the core is. In an era in baseball in which starting pitching is getting hurt at the highest clip it has ever been hurt before, you have maybe the best pitcher on the planet, and we are just wasting bullets. Just wasting them. You are getting a career year from Jack Flaherty, and that's coming from a guy who has received Cy Young votes before, and you're getting a career year out of him. He's going to get flipped at the deadline. Like, it's mind-boggling to me to build, quote unquote, around pitching and really focus on, that was something that Harris said in the offseason. We need to bring in pitching because the offense is going to be inconsistent. Wild. We talked about how wild that quote was at the time when he said it in spring training, but that's a wild premise to me, given the longevity issues at an unprecedented rate that the sport is having with pitching at the present moment. Maybe address the offense by addressing the offense. Shocking concept. And if this was year one, I would be a lot more patient. It doesn't make sense to me that year two is also an audition. What was the first year then? How long are we going to do this? How long is, we got to see what we have in the cupboard. So is next year we're going to call up Jace Young and he's going to be this year's Colt Keith, and we're going to, Parker Meadows might be back. Torkelson might be back. Whatever happens, like we're just going to call up Jace Young, and then like, oh, well, we have to see what we have in Jace Young, and we're going to call up Jackson Jobe, and we got to see what we have in Jackson Jobe before we can spend. We got to know what we have. You can't just do that forever. And I think that is the most frustrating part about this season, is that it just feels like an 162 game extension of year one, which I was okay with year one. I'm not okay with just continuing to do it and wasting service time and again, bullets on the pitching side of thing for the foreseeable future. And I know everybody talks about Skubal and the trade possibility and et cetera, et cetera. I said it last week. I'll say it again when we break down the trade deadline here in July. If you want if you want to know what this front office, what Scott Harris and co think about the future of the Detroit Tigers, you pay attention to what happens with Tarek Skubal. Because if you think you're close to competing, you're going to hold on to one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in the sport with 2 years of control left, right? Obviously. If you don't think you're close to competing, okay. I think that's what I got. I think this is a really disappointing season. Again, this is not all on Harris. I'm not trying to make this like Scott Harris is one like entirely. Again, there are how different this season would look if Spencer Torkelson was hitting 30 homers, like monumentally different, or if he took a step forward even from last year. If Colt Keith was hitting well, like we expected him to, if Parker Meadows hit even slightly below league average, nonetheless being one of the worst hitters in baseball. Javi Baez, like you can go down the list, right? Like this is ultimately a lot of the players have failed expectations that were put on them. But I've said it a lot. I think this is a group effort. I think a lot of parties involved are the reason why we find ourselves here. And it's concerning because you're only 7 games under 500. There's a very real chance that this thing just spirals, especially post-trade deadline, right? You trade some of your best players, the few people who can wear that title. This could get really ugly really quickly. It all stems from a lack of offense, as we are all blatantly aware of. So that doesn't mean that the future is just completely doom and gloom and there's no chance of anything. We will see how the trade deadline is handled. I think that Scott Harris has done some good here. Again, I'm not trying to say that this dude should have like a 0% approval rating or that every single thing he's touched has been awful. There have been a lot of improvements within the organization since he took over. I think that is also objectively true. And it is only year 2, right? So 2 years in GM time is still not very long. There still is more time to go, but in the first 2 years, not a lot of talent has been brought in at the major league level. And that is something that is, I think, absolutely fair to point out. Think of the list, legitimately make a list of the major league talent that has been brought in. Not the people that are drafted or the minor leaguers in trades, the major league talent that has been brought in since Scott Harris took over. And I think that is absolutely a fair criticism, while also acknowledging that a lot of stuff, within the system and in the farm system on the development side of things between the margins have all improved under him as well. Okay. Long episode. So I'll let you get on with your weekend here in LA this weekend. Obviously, a lot of 9:30 and 10 p.m. start times, and then a 4 o'clock start time on Sunday. You have Zach Plesac versus Kenta Maeda. I'm heading over to FanDuel. I'm taking the over. I'm going to make that abundantly clear. Not advice, okay? This is not advice. I'm telling you what I'm doing on FanDuel immediately after I get off air. Okay. That's a 6 ERA versus an 8.5 ERA. Then you have Reese Olson against Griffin Canning on Saturday. And then on Sunday, you have Casey Mize against Tyler Anderson, who has actually been phenomenal for the Angels so far this season. You're already down 1. I said you probably should go in there and The expectation should be taking 3 of 4. I mean, unless you're gonna gentleman sweep here and win the next 3, I don't see that happening. So behind the 8 ball, really downer of a show. I'm so sorry. I really don't try to be too overly pessimistic or optimistic, and try to walk that line and be as objective as possible. But that was an awful baseball game. This team has been spiraling in the month of June. This offense has been putrid the entire month of June. And every single time I go on the internet, it's, talking about trading the best player we've had in, in a decade. And it's weighing. It's weighing. So we'll be back Monday, though. It'll be July, new month, new me. Probably not really, but we'll see what happens. July is going to be a really busy month. We got the draft, we got the All-Star break, we have the trade deadline. It's going to be a very, very fun month for conversations. We will be here through it all. I'm going nowhere. All right. I know that probably upset some people, but so I apologize. But we'll be back Monday. Peace and love. Going to Therapy's dope. I appreciate you all who make this their first listen every day. I appreciate anybody who listens really at any point greatly. And I'll catch y'all on July 1. Peace and love. Going to Therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.